What's up, bookworms? Welcome to episode 138 of the Cantina Book Club podcast, where readers can find interviews with authors of all genres. I am Megan, self-proclaimed Cantina Queen, here to bring you insights from the authors themselves. Each week features a Cantina conversation with an author. Sometimes they're returning guests, and sometimes it's someone new. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on an episode, and feel free to browse through existing episodes so that you can catch a previous interview about a book that you finished. Today's episode features a chat with Matt Harry. We're talking about his book, Ashland. This was such a fascinating story, really well written. Everybody who is familiar or remembers COVID pandemic, Matt takes it to the next level and basically what if this was worse? But basically, Matt took the world of a pandemic that is more deadly and imagined how a detective or a private investigator would basically continue their job in such an environment, in such a world where nobody could go outside at all. You guys definitely need to pick this book up. And it was such a fun conversation with Matt. It was a little chaotic the beginning because I couldn't get my shit together, but we recorded a really good conversation, and I probably could have talked with him for a long time. And it's a really good one. So I hope that you guys pick up Ashland and that you can tune into this interview. And kind of going off of that, some spoilers do pop up in these conversations, but the episode is more enjoyable if you've read the book anyway. So if you don't know why I am singing Matt's praises for being extremely thorough and detailed in developing this story and how society would evolve or not for there's such an event, hit pause, add this episode to your playlist, and pick up a copy of Ashland. The interview will be here when you're ready. Just a heads up that I often use adult language to express my feelings towards these authors and their work. Whether the characters need to get their shit together or I am saying what the fuck for making me feel things, just please be mindful around listening ears. But without further ado, get ready, grab your favorite drink. Here is Matt. All right, so today we've got Matt Harry. We are going to talk about his book, Ashland, that I think by the time this interview comes out, it will be available already. Matt, thank you for joining me today. We got a real rough start. It was a little chaotic. I finished this book recently. It's still fresh in my brain. Fantastic, great storytelling, suspenseful. I really enjoyed Kai as a narrator.
Thank you.
And it was he's smart, a little funny, and just the adventure, the premise of it, something that is eerily and frighteningly that a lot of us can almost relate to the extreme. So I'm excited to talk more about it today.
Awesome. Thank you for all that. That's great.
I usually take notes whenever I read to interview you guys, and I'm like I remember went like pages and pages without writing notes because I was just zooming through. It was very it's suspenseful and engaging. So this was a fun read. It was really enjoyable and entertaining. So it's yeah. So my notes, it's just funny. If anybody else who had not read this book, they would be like, is she on crack? What is she writing about? Yeah, so can you start off by giving a summary of the book so that people can follow along with the conversation?
Sure. So, as you hinted at, it is inspired by recent true events. I had the idea for this book. I can date it specifically. It was like March 15th, 2020. We were like 2 weeks into the COVID pandemic. All my kids were at home. I was home from work. I was walking around my empty neighborhood and really freaked out. And I was asking myself, how could this situation be worse? And immediately I was like, what if we never could go outside again? Like, what if we had to, at least we go outside, right? Like, even though we were all at home, and the streets were empty, we could at least still go outside and go into nature. And I was like, what if we could do that? And so that I immediately was interesting to me. And I started thinking about it, like, what reason could there be that we could never leave the house? So eventually I came up with this, and I went through a bunch of research, which I could talk about later if you want. But I eventually came up with this microscopic, flesh eating microbot that gets invented that is self replicating. And of course, it gets out. And so anybody who's outside, anything with muscles that's outside, basically it's devoured by this thing. So people have like a couple months to try and figure out how to get inside, seal themselves inside to be safe. But now it's like 2 years after this has happened, this outbreak, and the people who have survived are trapped inside in these like plastic sealed houses with airlocks. And you can only go outside in a hazmat suit. And so the main character, Kai Braddock, like you mentioned, is a detective. He's a former cop, and now he basically just tries to track people down with drones And when his partner gets killed, he realizes he's going to have to do something that no one has done in almost 2 years, which is go outside. And so that kind of kicks off the main mysteries. He's trying to find out who killed his partner, what's going on, and doing it in this very eerie landscape that's anti any detective novel we've seen, because you can't talk to people, you can't collect evidence, you can't do all the normal stuff that you take for granted in a detective story.
Yeah, every like as I continued to progress through the story, I was just like, you thought of everything. You thought of every procedural like task in the job that would be like exactly like even things like where he's questioning someone via the
Mm-hmm.
drone and he can't like reach out to like have that extra boost of like intimacy and like closeness.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, like at some point when someone like grabs the drone and shifts it to look at him, and he's like, "Get your fucking hands
And he's
off
like,
my drone!"
whoa,
Like,
that's a huge
yeah,
break of protocol. Don't touch other
and
people's
it was
drones. Yeah.
yeah, and that's like it's so funny to imagine that like that. Yeah, that's like a component of the big picture of just this line of work that the nuances like the faux pas, the
Yeah.
unspoken like agreements, just understandings of how some people would carry on and how the shift in like yeah, not only protocol but just like common decency and just
Totally.
I thought,
I was doing, because my day job is I'm a teacher, and so obviously when the pandemic
oh,
happened,
what grade level?
I teach college, so I teach like
Okay.
filmmaking and screenwriting at the college level.
Oh, okay, cool, cool, cool.
And we're the early days of the pandemic. We all went to Zoom,
Mhm,
and this is like we're all still figuring it out. And I had a
mhm.
student turn on their Zoom camera in the morning, and they were like in bed, like their head on the pillow. I don't think they had a shirt on, and I was like, "Can you please turn off your camera? Because it's like
Oh
we're
my
all in
god.
bed with you." Oh,
Yeah. Well, were video, like was that mandatory or required to
well, I
show
mean,
video?
they turned on their video.
I was
It's
gonna say,
like,
like, if it was mandatory, that's one thing, but it's like, if you have the option and not have your video on, like,
right.
dude, I don't know if he just it didn't click, but it's like or he was like, "I'm just gonna
It's
who
just
cares anymore?" Like,
so definitely that was in my mind. I mean, like the early days of like what would the protocol be? Now that we're like 2 years into it, what would this look like if people are using drones and there's airlocks and everybody's a little bit agoraphobic,
yeah.
germaphobic because they don't want outside stuff coming in. So yeah, it was fun to work on. I started with this book. Usually I don't start with a world. I'm usually like a plot guy or a character guy.
Okay.
And this was the first time I started with that, like, what if this was the world scenario? Like, what if we could go outside?
Yeah.
And so that actually took me a while to figure out what the actual shape of the novel was, because I had this setting, but what kind of story do you tell in this setting?
Okay. That is so cool. That's so interesting that I bet that was, like, a unique challenge for you as because 'cause I'm not just, like, peeking on your website here,
Mm-hmm.
and your previous published works are, like I'm like, I'm interested. My interest is piqued that I'm gonna, like, keep an eye out for you because 'cause I'm like I like just the vibe that you got going on, but yeah, like, to go from story or character focused to environment
Mm-hmm.
big picture focused like what setting what environment is going what's going to happen and then how is that going to drive individual or a collective story plot points and things like that but then it's like it's the world building it's kind of like you already built the world but then it's like okay what are the
Right.
implications of and that's I was just thought it was such an interesting concept and I'll also I have to mention there's a couple of like I'm gonna go all over the place but you did a really good job of one of the things that I said, like, you thought of everything was because I have 2 boys
Oh
and
yeah.
you they're 3 years apart, and you realistically how young, like, young kids or big I would say bigger kids, like, they're not quite kids, but they're not quite like, one is approaching a teenager, and he's acting like a teenager, and the younger one is like because my kids during one of them was he had just started preschool during the pandemic, and
Mm-hmm.
so when he they all had to wear masks, and it's, like, a little bit heartbreaking, but the
Yeah.
kids, they don't think anything of it. They're all wearing their little, like, Marvel masks, Spider-Man
Yeah.
masks, and, like, dinosaurs on their masks and lining up for school, and then I also the younger one, he was born, like, in thing on th like, a near Thanksgiving.
Of
I was spent in the ho
2020.
I was Yeah, I was in the
Wow,
hospital on Thanksgiving
that's
2020,
crazy.
and yeah, and as a second born thing, I delivered my child wearing a mask, even though they didn't make me. They're like, "You could take the mask off while you're
Right,
delivering, it's fine," but it happened so quickly because the second born, it's usually, like, what a lot quicker, but or I'm just a beast, like, I pushed him out in less like 2 contractions pretty much. So it was just like before I knew it, it was like, boom, it was done.
right,
But then have any visitors, couldn't
right.
it was like,
Yeah.
and then but the food, they had a special, like, Thanksgiving meal. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all, but it was just like, okay, it was definitely different, like, almost night and day with the first one. You touching on and including his story, because it's not just him as a detective, like, I felt for him. I was like, he's a poor divorced quintessential divorced dad where his something happened in his career that caused him to not only lose like, resign and also lose his marriage, separated, estranged not really estranged, but separated from his kids, and the
Yeah.
fact that they can't, like they have to do virtual dinners, he can't visitation isn't a thing, it can't be a thing, and then, um I don't think this is necessarily, like, super spoilery, but just he's like, "Fucking Kevin." Like, like
So Kevin is, yeah, that's not super spoiler. So yeah, the main character, like you're saying, is he is divorced, and when you're thinking of like, once I realized it was a detective story, I was like, I got to give this guy, I got to mess his life up. I'm not
Mhm.
divorced. I have a wife and I have two boys, which is why he has an ex-wife and two boys. But it was a weird thing to write about that. It was a lot like I was joking the other day that it's like being a method actor sometimes, being a writer, especially because this book is in first person. So I would go
Yeah,
off and work on pages, and I would have to be in the mindset of like, what if I was separated from my family and I could only talk to them
yeah.
on Zoom? And it was very depressing. But then I would come home at the end of a writing session, and they'd be all be there, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, I'm so glad to see you guys!" They're like, "You were just gone for
Yeah,
2 hours.
yeah.
Like, what are you?"
You're like, "No, I wasn't here."
Yeah,
Like
so that stuff was very real. It was very easy to write because I'm in that situation basically. I was just taking
Right.
that one step of like, what if we were to separate? And every day I was just like so glad to not be in that situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've talked to authors who were like, "Oh, I felt bad, like, writing this character and this journey." And I was worried that people might think like, "Oh, is her marriage or his marriage like this?" Also read a book where the author, like, wrote in, like, an author's note to say, like, "Oh, thank you to my husband for being so awesome so that
Yeah.
I had to do so much research into, like, making this story authentic and believable." Like, I had no idea what this could be like. It's really funny because on the other side of that, when we were in quarantine, I was joking around, like, with our friends who were, like, standing up at our wedding, and, like, Facebook shows you, like, "Oh, on this day and blah, blah, blah,"
Right.
and it, like, rehashed an old joke, and I'm like, "You guys shoulda took bets on, like, how long we would last. This quarantine, man, is, like, pushing it." Of course, it just resurfaces, but I think I even read, like but it really wasn't that bad. It was because I was, like, I was pregnant for most of because I think things started lightening up, like, I think it was maybe a full year and a few months.
Yeah.
You know what
For
I mean?
us, it
If I
was.
remember
I actually did a little thing. The way I kept track of time and would entertain us, because we had two young kids. So I had in 2020 we had a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so they were both fully at home. My one son was in kindergarten, doing kindergarten on
I
Zoom,
mean,
which is
yeah, I was gonna
insane.
say good for you because I can't imagine how it is when the kids are older and they need resources that they have to share for virtual learning or whatever is
But they
going
still
on, you
did
know
it.
what I mean?
We were all on Zoom in different rooms, like four
Yeah,
different rooms in the
yeah.
house, all on Zoom, all working. But just to entertain us every day, I started taking like just a little photo series of like, here's what we did today. And
Oh, that's such a good
I
idea.
think I got up to like, because I basically did these pictures until the kids went back to school, which for us was like they went back for like 2 days in 2021 at the end of the school year, and then we had the whole summer off. So they didn't really go back till August of 2021. So it was like 400 plus days.
Yeah, yeah.
But I look back at
That's
now,
a lot.
it's like super wholesome. We were like writing jokes on blackboards. We were like,
That's a
I made a lot of
yeah.
cocktails. That was not so good, but
Yeah, that was the whole thing where it was like, it was easy to hide my pregnancy because like, nobody was doing anything, and I didn't have to make an excuse of, like, "Why aren't you drinking?" or "Why aren't you, like why can't you have raw fish?" I don't know, but see, so that no, that's a perfect example, and also, like, that makes me think of some of the other that Kai was saying in his monologues or whatever, his recounting, where he noticed that some of the neighbors or people would post, like, encouraging signs on the
mhm.
windows, and it's like, I totally saw that at some point, like either driving to and from something, I would see messages. And even I think we participated in one like at Easter where it was like, oh, let's do a neighborhood Easter egg hunt from our park district. And where it's like, oh, decorate paper
Oh,
eggs
that's great.
and put them on the front window. And so people have, like, if they're on a walk or if they're driving by, they can see random colored eggs on people's houses. And I'm like, that's like cute and adorable
Mm-hmm.
and super doable. Like, and it's an activity. And it's like, I was just, people are so creative. So that's why I
Yeah.
was like, that's so cool that you found a way to like just, and it's also a joke where I think I read some people were just like, no, I'm not going to get in touch with myself. I'm going to learn how to make bread from scratch.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
some people just picked up so many hobbies, so many things. And I think that, yeah, but unfortunately for me, I was 9 weeks pregnant because I found out I was pregnant at the end of March. And
Oh.
then like 2 months later, I got laid off from my
Oh
job
my God.
that I was working at for like 4.5 years. And so I wasn't like, it was unfortunate, but it was like, it just sucks. It just sucked. And it was like anxiety inducing because I'm like, I'm pregnant and I don't know who's hiring right now. And so,
Can't
and I
even
have a
really go to the
pretty,
doctor.
yeah. And I was like, I couldn't even like, I think to cope, I had like pizza and ice cream because I'm like, I can't even drink. Like, I can't even
Yes.
like have a
Yeah. If you get
shake. Like,
everything.
I
Yeah.
couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a whole thing. But I think, and I know I have like a good skill set. It was just like, yeah, like the world is in like chaos and unpredictable, and we were all learning how to deal with it from our point of view, from our perspective, from our situation. Because yeah, I just remember like hearing how Italy was going through it, and
Mm-hmm.
then it eventually made its way here, and I was like, oh shit. Like, so that's why I was like, when you were saying with the whole premises, like it happened in Europe, it happened in France, and then but they were making their way, those little assholes were making their
Yes.
way
Yeah.
to the West Coast. And it was just like, oh God, that is frightening. And I think it's sort of the point where you don't really think much of it until it happens. You see it happen
Mm-hmm.
and you see how serious it is. Like, I have friends who were in the healthcare system, who are working in hospitals, and who were just like, this is ridiculous. Aside the administration, like everybody had an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt for my friends working in healthcare who were like, these people don't know shit. Like, and so it's like, there was just so much that I could tell that you really, one of my questions is usually like, how do you take care of yourself? Like, how did you because you touched on that, where how'd you get in the zone? How'd you pull yourself out of the zone?
Mm-hmm.
Self-care, because you voluntarily went back into those days to write this story and to go into detail and
Yeah.
really like immerse yourself as the first person point of view.
So I actually started writing it. I was writing it during the pandemic.
Yeah,
So
okay. Yeah, you did say
I
that.
was writing it in. It took me a few months to figure out the story I wanted to tell, but to me it was. And this is so weird. I've been saying this, and it sounds so odd to say out loud, but I actually find dystopias oddly comforting because it's like you get to go into this world and it's bad in some way, but then you come out of it and you're like, oh, the actual world is not as bad as this.
I think it's also like a morbid curiosity,
Sure, yeah.
It's like, yeah.
And I've always been really like I don't know why I'm always been drawn to like probably because I'm an introverted person, but like any kind of like empty city story, anytime where like someone's wandering around a place that should be populated with people but it's not, I'm always really drawn to that. And so when I was writing the book, I would because my son, my youngest was 5, and we would try to get him down for a nap every day. So I would just drive him around the empty Los
Mm.
Angeles, and then when he'd finally fall asleep, I'd just pull over to the side of the road, oftentimes like up above the city, and that's when I would try and work on chapters while he was asleep. And so that was actually it was a good escape for me because every time you turned on the radio or the news, it was like, as you said, all this terrible stuff that was happening.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was when I would come out of it, I'd be like, again, it's like I could at least go outside. Like we've got food still. We're not eating cricket burgers and
I
microwave
know, right?
meals, and I'm with my family. So it was oddly like a way of, and I'm weird like that. Like as soon as the pandemic hit, I went and watched the movie Contagion, like first night. I'm like, I got to be prepared. My wife's like, what are you doing? Why? How can you watch this? I'm like, I got to know this information. So yeah, it was oddly like
Research.
a thing that was comforting for me, but and it was able to draw
Yeah.
upon it while it was happening. I was just like filing stuff away, as you said, all these little details were occurring.
Yeah, it was because I always love asking about the research, and it's just because I love getting the answers from that. Because authors, I think, like, we're like, a lot of people, I feel like a majority of humanity is, like, nerds out about something,
Yep.
but I love, like, how authors in general, like, they didn't know, or maybe they do expect to love the research part of it, but it's also funny how, like, "Oh my god, I spent 4 hours for 2 sentences." Like,
Yes. Yeah.
so I like I that's why I love asking authors, what was, like, maybe one of the more fascinating or surprising things that you learned while you were collecting information?
Yeah, that's a great question because it took me. I had like the concept, but I didn't know how to get to it. So
Mm,
as like, what is this thing that was trapping people inside that they couldn't go out? And so I talked to several people because I happen to know my cousin was married to a immunologist, so she knew a lot about infectious diseases. And so I pitched the concept to her, and I was like, "What do you think this would be?" And she kind of gave me some ideas, and we talked through it. But a lot of that was like virusy stuff. And the thing with
okay.
viruses, as we found, is like if you can get away
Yeah,
from a virus for like a couple of weeks, it's going to die off. It's going to like go dormant. So that wasn't quite right. I needed something that could last longer. So then I talked to a engineer friend that a friend of mine hooked me up with at JPL, and we started talking about this sci-fi trope of gray goo, which is
what's J
like the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. So
okay,
it's where they build
super
The
cool.
Mars rover and stuff. Yeah.
That's wild, oh my god, look at you.
So this guy was, and he was super excited to talk to me. Like we got on the phone and we talked for like 2 hours because I pitched him the concept, and he started like coming up with like what it could be. And so we started talking about
That's really
self-replicating
awesome. That's fun.
nanotechnology. But then the nanotechnology problem is they have to need stuff to make new things of themselves. So a little tiny robot would need silicone and metal and things to make transistors. And so that still wasn't quite right. So I was looking around online and I found this video of scientists had created what they called organic robots, where they
Mm,
basically take cells, little tiny cells, and they program them to do tasks, like the way a white blood cell will attack a foreign
sure.
cell or an infection. And they have programmed them to do little things. Like I can take this drug, I can put it inside this cell, and I can deliver it somewhere in the body. And so finding out that that was a real thing was amazing. But then immediately your brain goes to, okay, what if you program this to do something bad, like eat muscle proteins instead of cancer proteins?
Yeah,
And then it got out. And then it is organic.
and
It can lay dormant and it can come out whenever. Yeah.
and I feel like muscle proteins is specific enough, and, like, it's so understandable still. Like, people get it, and I think even Kai was like, "I didn't know that insects had muscles, but okay."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because it's like you're looking at what the life that is left, and it is sad from that perspective, right?
Right.
Where these animals don't know what the hell is going on, like the natural world, and but then there was also commentary about planet Earth and how much we could see the positive things happening from humanity in general,
Yeah.
the population taking a step back and being. I think I saw this meme that was like, I feel like nature is just telling us like we were being punished, we're going back to sent to our rooms.
That's
And like
great.
that's like
Yeah.
it was essentially like, oh my God, like that is, and once you think about it that way, you're like, oh man, it was something that was, I don't know if humbling is the right word, but maybe like to make you stop and think,
Yeah, I think it is
like to,
humbling. The fact that
yeah.
like these little microorganisms we can't see could totally change our lives overnight. And I think, like you said too, I'm a huge. This is why it's my biggest fear. Is like I'm a huge outdoors fan. Like I think of nature as like my church. Like I have to get outside once a week at least.
Fill your cup,
Right. Yep.
yeah,
Touch grass,
yeah,
all that.
yeah.
And I think you're right that I feel like we keep getting these messages from the planet of like, don't do that. Like, it's an amazing system that we have. It's like a self contained system that will eventually heal itself if we let it. Like,
I don't think people realize how crazy, of all the planets and however many universes, galaxies, whatever, planet Earth had just the right amount of conditions
yep,
for life
yep,
and to sustain life. And for us to like literally, if we had to, we could live on the land
yeah,
if we harness that. And if we do, like, we could like look at solar power, look at farming, look at anything else besides where you get into like whatever insecticides, GMOs, like if we're just talking about produce or if you're talking about technology in terms of like we the powers that be, the people, and you touch on this too, and which we also saw where there's a class division of
Hmm.
how that would still prevail, who would too big to fail,
Right.
who would still be fine, who would still be fine in a pandemic versus who was like really straight up struggling,
Right.
and this is like really detrimental to their just livelihood. And once you take a step back, I think there's not enough people who realize that the bigger picture, like how crazy it is that the planet Earth and there's no planet B. Fortunately, the people with the loudest voices and with the most money, with the most power, with the biggest connections, it just like if I talk too much about it, it's gonna piss me off. Like,
No,
it's
totally.
just like people who know, like who knew about it and knew what would happen and they did it anyway. And they just wanted to like frame frame the narrative and they wanted to frame the laws and they did all these things. And 30, 40 years later, where like I'm scared. Like I'm sure you understand too. You have two kids.
Right.
I'm like, mine are 5 and 8. My second was born in the pandemic and it was like I'm scared of like the world that they're gonna deal with. And I'm just thinking like all these people that make dumbass choices or selfish choices. I'm like, aren't you worried about like your kids, like the planet that your
Right.
grandkids are gonna have? And I think maybe they think like, oh, it's fine because they're gonna be above it. Like I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just
I
don't.
mean,
It's hard to like. I don't want to extrapolate, but it is. It's just like, dude, like it's crazy how I'm just like when we were thinking about a third, and I was just like, the planet's dying. I don't think I was like, I don't think we
I
should.
mean, mine
I don't
was
think
I
we
said I
should.
didn't want to have a third because if I have a third boy, it's like living with a basketball team at that point.
Yes, yes, that's how I felt. I was like, I would just live in the fetal position in
Right.
defeat. Like
Two of them
like
are
unless you
so
could
loud, and oh my
Wild
god,
West.
yeah.
Oh my God,
But
they don't listen
I
to a
think to
thing.
answer just because you bring up a lot of good points, and two things. I think even though this is a dystopian novel, I do think it's ultimately hopeful because I think it points to this idea that we are a collective. And like you touched on to me what the greatest theme of it is, which is like selfishness. If you try to be selfish and keep everything for yourself, that's only going to end up shooting you in the foot eventually
Mhm.
because the whole planet operates off of a collective. And I think the other
Yeah.
thing that gives me hope is that if you look at things that were huge disasters, like Chernobyl, for example, when
Oh my
Chernobyl
God, yeah.
happened, they were like, "This nobody's going to be able to live here for 200 years," and it's only 40 years later, and there's like plants growing there, and people are living there. It's like so. It's just amazing how resilient the planet is if we give it like a chance.
Yeah.
You know?
If we stop interfering, if we just leave it alone.
Yep.
I remember, yeah, because that just reminds me. Oh my God! So like I don't know if you've seen or read Planet or Project Hail
Yeah,
Mary,
of course.
and so that's like another sci-fi. Yeah, I was listening because I was like, I saw how big of a deal the movie was gonna be, and I was like, okay, I'll listen to the audiobook, and the audiobook was great, like the narrator. Because audiobooks, I'm like, if I can't stand the person,
Yeah, it's hard.
I
It's
can't
hard.
do it.
Yeah.
But the guy, oh my God, I wish I remembered his name, but he did a really good job. And then so I was like, I go to my husband, and he's an engineer, and so
Oh,
I'm
great.
like, I was like, honey, this is totally up your alley. We're gonna go see the movie together. So I was like, we're gonna figure it out when the kids aren't here, when the kids are like in school or whatever. And he's like, okay. He's like, all right. And then it was, yeah, he liked it too.
Oh,
But I was
good.
just like, I would go see it again. I would go pay to see it in the theaters again because it was just so well done. And it was just like, it was, even the story in general, it was such a good story. And just with like how it brings back that theme of hope
Hmm.
and like being, hey, this is our planet and we have to protect it and these are the things that we have to do if something like this happens and it's a big, the stakes are high and it's a big ask, demand, like somebody has to make a lot of
Hmm.
sacrifices and
Hmm.
like it, and if one thing goes wrong, it's like, oh, it could set you back like 20 steps
Yeah.
and it's a whole thing. So that's when I was reading this, like, because it's, I guess, dystopian, but also sci-fi-esque, where it's like this story just still had me in the mindset and it reminded me of Project Hail
Oh,
Mary or
that's
other like
amazing.
dystopian. Yeah, because it was just like, yeah, but it's like, oh, he had to go to outer space to solve to figure it out. And your story was no, this, and then plus like Los Angeles, one of the most congested places
Hmm.
ever,
Hmm.
like, I just remember visiting there. This was before kids, but my husband and I, we had 2 weddings a week apart from each other in California, and so we spent some time in LA, and I just remember I was like, I heard traffic was horrible, but it really took us, like, 4 hours to get from to San Diego.
Yeah.
And so, like, it was and that's just, like, we're, like, trying to plan our week, you know, but it ended up like, we figured, yeah, we would be driving down because like, I have family in San Diego, and then the second wedding was in San Diego, but it was just straight up like I was telling my family, like, "Oh, we're expected to be there at this time," and then I told them, I was like, "Sorry, like,
Yeah.
it's
It's crazy.
changing," and I think they expected it, so it was,
Right.
they
It's
were like,
funny when
"That's
tourists come in from out of town. They're like, "Oh yeah, I
fine."
can come see you. It's only 10 miles away." And you're like, "No, you can't. That's going
No.
to take your whole day." But it's funny when I was before I was a teacher, I was an editor, like I edited reality TV shows, and it got to a point towards the end of that where the first question I would ask is not what is the show, not how much money is it. I was like, where is it? If it's down by the LA airport, forget it. That's going to take me 4 hours to commute back and forth. It's not worth it.
Yeah,
That's horrible. So it is funny, and it was
yeah.
again great to imagine for this because it's like the last place
Oh
you would
my
expect
god,
to
like
have everybody be
yeah.
inside, and it's like the outside is really nice a lot of times. That's why the movie business is here because originally when they started making movies, they needed a lot of sunlight, so the sun shines like 300 days a year here, and it's super nice. But
Oh, man, that's, like, something that's so common sense that I wouldn't even think of. Because yeah, the City of Stars, it's where everything's based, and it's because that makes so much sense when the film industry was first emerging,
and they had to use
that
natural light, like they didn't even
that's
have
what
good
oh my
electric
god, you just
lights at the time. They would shoot in
somebody,
these
like, see
greenhouses. Basically, they had clear glass on top, and that's what they'd build the sets in the very first early
that's why
movies.
I could tell you have a history and knowledge of film
Yeah.
where I'm just like a consumer of film. I think that's so fascinating. That's so cool. I kind of want to piggyback off of something that you mentioned. So, how did,
Sure.
with your previous careers and roles in your professional life, were there any skills that you found that transferred over to your writing career?
Oh yeah, the editing for sure. I was always interested in writing from when I was like a little kid. I would just like write stories and little plays and things like that, and I would send them to magazines even when I was still in high school. So like I actually did interviews and movie reviews for the Cleveland Plain Dealer when I was like 16 years old.
That's so funny.
Like
Little baby Matt.
I know, like I had to interview. I did a group interview with Tom Hanks when I was 15, and my dad had
Well,
to
that what
drive
was he
me.
doing back then?
So
What
back
was
then,
what,
he had just done A League of Their Own. He had done
okay.
Philadelphia, like so he hadn't done Forrest Gump yet, so he was
I
not
was gonna
quite,
say,
yeah,
yeah, he would you got him at, like, a kind of a precious time
yeah.
where that's so fun, that's so cool, oh my god.
So
You said your dad had to drive
yeah,
you?
yeah. So Tom Hanks was in town he was doing like a play because he actually came up through the Cleveland. That's where he studied acting, was through the Cleveland acting scene, and so he would come back oftentimes like once a year for many years. So I got a chance to interview him. I was in a big group, and my dad's driving me to this hotel in downtown Cleveland, and it was snowing, and he's like, "So you want me to come in with you?" And I'm like, "No, Dad, I'm a professional. Circle the block for 2 hours." So
He was like, "I wanna see
he
Tom
wanted to see
Hanks,"
Tom
and then it was
Hanks, and I was
and you
like,
were
"Get
also
out of
like,
here!"
"No, dude, like, that's the least cool thing, like, I gotta be cool, I gotta be professional,
Right.
I gotta look like I'm, like, autonomous, like, independent." It's
But the
like
funniest thing is, I go in. I'm like 15 years old. I looked like
yeah.
a teeny tiny child. Like my dad should have come
Oh.
in with me. You know. So I was always interested in writing, and then I went to film school because I discovered film in kind of undergrad. Because I always loved movies, I just didn't realize people had made them. And so
Mm,
as I was trying to get work as a writer, I would get paid to edit TV shows. And what I found
that's
from
really
the
cool.
editing was like, it makes you learn so much about writing, is because you take all this footage and you figure out, wait, I can tell the scene this way. I can have him say this instead of that. And I can have this reaction
Yeah.
instead of that reaction. It totally changes what the scene is. So I thought it was very helpful for the writing.
That yeah, and even if it's a totally different format too, you're still figuring out how to I love that story, and I love like I was saying, like, just a different format too, where I bet you just, like, you were learning, how to switch maybe not switch but switch voices, but
Sure.
also switch storytelling methods. I just think that's so cool. I think that's so fun how to just 'cause I've spoken to people who have worked in TV or film before they decided to write a book, and I think that's really cool that how a lot of that transfers over. Actually, one of the coolest ones that comes to mind was I interviewed Adam Nimoy about
Cool.
like his memoir
Yeah.
with his dad and how he was like he grew up in that world or like adjacent, but then he was also like he grew up to be a TV editor and writer and or not a TV editor, but TV writer and producer. And it was really that's why I always enjoy like hearing about that transition or that transfer of skills or like how you adapt or how did that give you like a leg up or what did you learn from it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I started, as I said, I was always interested in writing, and then I spent many years writing screenplays and stuff, and having a little bit of success, but not getting a ton of movies made. And then I pitched an idea way back in 2012 to my agent at the time for a movie, and I was calling it Sorcery for Beginners. And
Oh, was that from your
yeah, it's my
is that
first book that
okay.
I published, but I pitched it as a movie, and
Okay.
he said he's like, I love this idea, but nobody's going to buy it as a screenplay because it's not based on anything. This is all the way back in 2012. We were still talking about like it needs to be IP,
Sure.
and
Sure.
so I remember driving home and I was like, I'll just write a book then. But that took 4 years, and I had to find a
Yeah.
publisher. But it did come out.
Is it like what's the audience for that?
That's like a middle grade. So
I
that's
was
like a
gonna
middle grade
say it looks
fantasy.
I might add it to my reading list, I think, 'cause is it just a trilogy then right here?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, 'cause no,
So
I'm just like, I'm creeping on your website
no, no,
'cause
it's all
it's
good.
like yeah.
My short pitch is it's like the Goonies, but with magic. So it's like
Oh,
this
that's
group of kids finds a help guide to magic, like a for dummies guide, but they have to figure it out themselves. They don't have any teachers or schools or anything like that.
man, really, like, with the whole Harry Potter thing going on, or I forget, like, I feel like maybe there was a momentum for that, or
Yeah, I was I remember when I was querying it, I got a lot of good responses. Like shockingly, like it was a huge 180 from being a screenwriter where you send your scripts out and nobody gets back to you and
mm,
nobody reads it. And then I was pitching people the idea over email, and people were like, "Oh my god, like I want to read this." Like so, people were very excited by the concept, and so it did. Yeah, eventually came out in 2017, and eventually 2 years later, I got hired to adapt it as a TV show. So it ended up coming full circle in an ironic way. But now it's like when I teach, I tell all my
wait, so is it a
students,
TV show?
it didn't get made. So I was
Okay.
hired to write the script, and then I turned the script in February of 2020.
Ugh.
So it's like nobody, people were like,
How many stories are just like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, yeah, yeah. Oh man, who knows? With all the adaptations that are going on right now, there may be a time, a sweet spot for you to still maybe if you wanted to.
Oh my God, it'd be
I
great.
feel like,
I would love
yeah.
it.
I see you've got like you are a filmmaker. Is that also like a middle grade or
That's a weird one because it's a choose your own adventure novel.
oh my God,
And
I remember doing those for Goosebumps.
yeah, I loved choose your own adventure books when I was growing up. And I always wanted to write one, and I could never
Well,
really
you
figure
being a
out the
storyteller,
end.
you were like, yes, like yeah.
When I love anything immersive too, like I love immersive theater, like video games, like anything where the audience gets to take part, I think is really fun. And I could never figure out a way in. And then I was like, what about careers? Like that's the most choice most of us make in our lives is like what
That is
jobs
such
we
a fun
take.
concept.
And so I picked filmmaking because that was obviously the thing I knew the most.
Yeah.
So that was the first one in that series I did.
You may become an Oscar-winning director, marry a movie star, join a cult, or get killed by a paranoid
Yeah,
producer.
normal stuff, all
That's
normal stuff.
amazing. That's amazing. What's the age group for that then?
That's a little bit older, I would say. I think it's like teens and up.
Okay,
Because there
either
are
young adult or
some,
what or
yeah,
new adult,
yeah.
like college
I think
or
Wyatt could read it.
it's
But there's
hilarious.
definitely like I wanted to be honest about what you can encounter in the film business. I was joking, like I wish this is the book someone had given me before I'd gone to film school, so you could try the different pathways before you actually make all the mistakes.
Oh my God, that's so funny. You think this is exaggerated, but only maybe a little bit.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's just
I have a map in there of like all the stuff that happens, like all the choices, and like a third of them are stuff that actually happened to me, and then another third are things that happened to people for real.
what okay, you got to share a couple things
Sure.
that yeah,
So one
please.
is I did have a friend whose roommate joined a cult. I won't say which one, but a very famous, like they've made
Psychology.
Netflix documentaries about it.
Wow.
And I remember when we were like hanging out with her friend was like, I can't hang out with you guys anymore. They told me I can't hang out with anybody who's not in the cult. And so we were watching this from outside, like, oh my God. Another thing,
Like you only knew the surface of it maybe, and it was like that. Oh my God.
yeah, yeah. Another thing that happened was like several crazy bosses that I worked for. I changed the names for the book, but really like just crazy egotistical stories of like people. I heard a story from a friend who like someone threw a coffee mug at their head in like an office setting, like crazy. Yeah, I know. I met someone who was a former actor that married the head of a studio, and so that kind of found its way in, like some of the stories they talked about. So yeah, it was fun to work on.
That's amazing. I bet you had so much. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I bet you had so much fun with that.
Yeah,
You know, it's like it's almost just like, okay, I'm just gonna get this off my chest. I'm not like,
I didn't
you
realize when
know,
I started how therapeutic it was going to be. That was
yeah.
probably the most because I was like, you look at this. What
Aside
if
from
I'd
writing
made
a
this
memoir,
choice?
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it ended up being basically like half a memoir because it's like I would start with a scene where I was in that position and I made this choice in reality, but what if I'd done that? Where would I have gone? And so it was, yeah, it was ended up
that is
being,
kind of, yeah, like, because you mentioned like gaming, like you're like a kind of like a gamer and you like to choose your own adventure because you're a storyteller, obviously, or you're a story editor in some capacity, right?
Mhm.
Like it I love that. I'm sure you've heard about Dungeon Crawler
Oh
Carl.
my God, the best. So I
Yes.
started reading it
Have you are
last
you caught up?
year. Yeah, and I read
I
all 8 of
Me
them.
too. I got my husband's not a reader. I got him into it and he finished 7 books in like 2 months. It's like, and of course, I don't know if you listened to it
I
or
haven't
versus
listened to
read
it, I
it.
just read it, yeah.
I think I was on book 3 by the time people were like, "If you're reading it, stop and listen to it. Stop reading it, listen to it." And I have, like, a commute, so I was like and then, like, I run or I, like, do
Yeah.
chores and stuff. So I, like, had it and I was like, "Okay, I agree." I would do back and forth where I would, like, get my e-reader when I'm reading or my hard copy when I'm reading, and then, like, I would just catch up each, like, chapter or point where I'm at in whatever format I'm in. I definitely if you ever want to redo it, listen to the audio.
That's great.
It's Jeff Hayes is fantastic, and just the voices that he does, and it's hilarious because like, "New achievement." It does sound like a video game, like, it's hilarious, and yes, that's why I'm like, I'm hoping you did, I hope you did because 'cause you're a gamer and you're a
Oh yeah.
storyteller, and, like, choose your own adventure, that's right up your alley,
Yeah, I
for
love that
sure.
series. It was very inspiring. And then hearing how he did the series was even more inspiring because it started off self-published basically.
Yeah,
He said in an interview I heard recently that he was making a living drawing pictures of people's pets at conventions.
yeah.
Like he would go to conventions, he'd take a picture, draw, and that's how he was making his money. And then he published this for free on Royal Road, I think. And it totally hit with people. And now it's like,
He's all the it's blown up and he deserves it.
yeah,
He totally
it's great.
does. It's like you see some people who are like big names now or their work is so huge or it's like really getting traction now and it's just like, "Oh my god, how long did it take you to get there?"
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's just I love that and just to but then it also is a pain in the ass because I'm like, "Okay, he's going on tour for the 8th book tickets in my area sold out in like 7 minutes
Oh
or like less
man.
than 7 minutes and I was just like Jesus Christ like I'm just it's like and I'm like on 3 different screens trying to figure it out and I'm like oh it's like high demand yeah it's I love that series and I'm like I'm one of those people who are like I want to talk to you about it like I'm like read it because you would love it
Yeah.
read it we'll talk about it because it's really funny with my husband where because I got him to read the Fourth Wing series, and I got him to read Throne of Glass, and it's just because he's not real much of a reader, but Aragon, back when it first came out, that was his jam. He loves dragons, and
Yeah, there you go.
he loved it, and then so he got me to read it, and then so now I'm like, he just needs that sweet sauce, that special subject matter where it just hooks him and it's like good. And did he read all of Throne of Glass? He read all of Dungeon Crawler
Nice.
Carl. He's caught up with Fourth Wing, and it's really funny because I'm like, just a heads up, there's some like on page spicy times. Because sometimes people are like, that's not my jam, but I was like, I just gave him a heads up. And then once he finally sat down to read it, he's like, all right. He said, there's some spice in here. I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, let's do this. And he just needed a pep talk. And he was like, fine. He doesn't get bothered by it. He's like, yeah, so what? Like they banged it out, whatever.
Right.
Like he's like, it is what it is. But like I know that my cousin, when I suggested it to my cousin and he read it, because he got me to get into the Cosmere Stormlight Archive. And I'm like, dude, if I'm gonna give you, 5 like I listened to the audiobooks and it was like 250 hours of audiobooks across the
Yeah,
5
it's
books.
crazy. It's so
It's
intimidating to
crazy.
get into.
It's so intimidating, and plus I'm like, I there's so much I don't catch on to because 'cause I'm just listening to it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I wanna keep up with it, and Brandon Sanderson is fantastic, and his world building and everything, like, it's like he's in a league of his own, but, like, listening to it and reading it, I'm definitely a read write learner, and so
Mm-hmm.
listening to it, I think even if I read it, I would miss so much, like, there's just because it is like a saga, an epic high fantasy saga for real, so I was like, "I need you to read Fourth Wing, or" I told him, "or Throne of Glass," and he
I
said
just want
Fourth
to
Wing
share this with
because
you. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was like, "If I'm gonna give you my time, you're gonna give me your time, we get a discussion,"
I
and
like it.
he was like, "Fourth Wing's supposed to be a TV series, so I'll read that," and he did, and he was like, I don't know, it was just, like, all about, like he gets got really hung up about the intimacy and about the sex and about even the leading up, the sexual tension between them, he got
Hmm.
really hung up on that. I'm like, "You realize it's, like, 5% of the big picture." Like, there's so much unanswered questions, there's so much, like, connections and things that are going on, and it's really you're, like, turned off by that, like, I and so it's really funny to, like, compare my cousin's experience with my
That's
husband's.
funny.
I'm
Has he
like
read the
'cause I
Temeraire series? I might be
mm-mm.
mispronouncing that wrong. Those are really good too. That's like dragons in the Napoleonic War, basically. Like, what if there
Okay,
were
is that
dragons during the Napoleonic War?
oh my god, that sounds hilarious and fantastic.
Yeah.
How is it an old series or like
I would say maybe 15 years it came out. The first one started, so it's not
okay.
super old. But yeah, it's like so people are riding around on dragons instead of ships to like fight the battles in like the 1800s, and you have to. So
Oh
the
my
captain of the dragon has like a mind link with the dragon.
but it's like historical fiction
Yeah,
almost, like it's
historical fiction
historical
with dragons in it.
fantasy,
Yep,
yeah. I love that because I do like historical fiction. I think it's really cool to, like I don't know, it makes me feel a little bit smarter
totally. That's how I
after I
like to
finish
learn
reading
about
it.
history is through like a book or a movie. you know?
Yeah, I know, or it just gives you so many, like, components
Yeah.
or stories from history from points of view that aren't in the mainstream or aren't in history books and aren't in school curriculum
Right.
for on purpose, probably. It's yeah, it's just so fun even just fun to like, read a person's take, their creative agency on real events, like true events,
Yeah, and I
and
think just to me that's the whole point of fiction. Again, getting back to that idea of we're collective species. And I know that we love to separate ourselves based on where we live and what sports teams we like and all these other reasons. But ultimately, we're like the same species. We all need to learn to work together. And to me, fiction and reading about other worlds and cultures is such a great way to do that, to like build
mm,
empathy, to understand that
yes.
like there's different ways of doing things. It's not everyone does the things the same way we do them. And that's fine.
I know, that's why I do appreciate reading points of view that I've no idea about.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that's why I've had guests who are Middle Eastern, who are people of color, Asian, people who I've interviewed people who are trans, people who are LGBTQ community, and I'm just like, I'm not I don't have any experience in that, and I don't know about it, but I'm like, you have a story to tell, or your
Hmm.
work, your art is a way for me to get a little like dip my toe into your brain for you to share your work, your light, your creativity with the world and from your perspective. And I think that's how privileged we are to be able to have that opportunity, at least for me. I'm glad I had the opportunity to read that, like for it to come across my desk, across my computer, to be like, hey, do you want to cover this book? And I'm like, yeah, because I rarely say no because I would ask people because there's like obviously publishers or agents, PR agents who come and reach out to me, but there's also the author themselves. And I'm like, how did you find me?
Hmm.
And they're like, oh, you were on the list for like a gay friendly podcast. And
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, it's like basically just me saying like, "Oh, do I have a room in my schedule? Does this sound interesting?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not just like I don't look at it about I do appreciate the opportunity to have diversity in my coverage, but also I'm like to have it to a point where that community is like, "Oh no, you could yeah, go
You're
to
known
her. She's
for it.
great." You
Yeah.
know, I love it. And I was like, "Oh my god, thank you." I
Yeah.
was like,
I feel the
"Ah."
same way about the teaching. Like the school I teach at has a really big international presence, and I am such a much better person I am now 10 years into this than I was 10 years ago because just all these students from all over. I've probably now had students from 150 different countries that I've taught,
Yeah.
like countries in
Yeah.
Africa, Eastern Europe, China. And it's just so interesting seeing all the perspectives that they come in
Yes.
with. And I'm always pushing them to like get more specific about your life because that's the only
Yes.
thing you have are all the details of
Yes.
your life. And I think everyone, when they start creatively, they want to try imitating something they like. But I think the real secret sauce for everybody is like whatever your personal experience is, no one else is going to have that exact set of circumstances and background. And
Yeah, and
the more
I
you share it,
totally
the better it is.
respect. I've never had to do that. I've never had to go on learning a culture, going into a country that I wasn't really familiar with. I'm half Mexican, so I've been to Mexico a bunch of times, and like whenever I go there, 9 times out of 10, I'm with family. I'm staying with family, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm in their cars. I'm like staying in their homes, and they're always gonna look out for me. And because I'm like white, my other half is Irish. I look like I came off the boat. Like, and so but I also recognize that, and I also recognize the privilege of that versus the opportunity of having family members who are different shades of skin. Because I have family members who have married black people and have black half and half kids. My nephew is half black, half Mexican. But I'm like really appreciative of the fact that I have that worldview where I'm straight up like I could call out bullshit, or I'm just like I'm not easily influenced by a lot of the voices who are like just assuming things. And it is so interesting to hear, like, for example, my dad's point of view. He would joke around because he like met my mom at a bar
Mm-hmm.
and he was underage. He had a fake ID. And my mom was like divorced. She like my mom, she was a Mexican woman. She was divorced and she already had a kid, but she was like out and like they met, and she was even dancing with my dad's friend. And my dad was like, "Oh, do you mind if I call her?" Because his friend didn't want to go in her neighborhood that she was in, Chicago. And then there was a love story, but it's like my dad would joke about like, "Oh, I thought she spoke Spanish," like which is, but my mom doesn't. She was so Americanized, and so that's like another level of understanding of like the culture and the experiences. How there's like a whole population, not just of like Hispanic immigrants or his second generation, third generation. It could be from like other parts of the world too, where they just they come here, and I just look at it, I was like, I can't help but have respect because I've never had to do that. I've never
Yeah,
had to like
it's
even
so
like in
difficult.
a safe space of education, like a school, because I work at a community college. I do marketing for community college.
Okay.
So I've worked in higher education before. So yeah, there's definitely a vibe, a sense of community, and you're gonna get people from other parts, other all walks of life. You know what I mean?
I
So
just
and I
did a teacher exchange in the fall because our school has a sister school in Chengdu, China. So I went over to Chengdu, China for 2 weeks.
my God, how was
I
that?
mean, it was really incredible, especially as a
Where is
writer.
that in terms of, like, the country, like
Yeah, it's interesting. It's on the very far western end of China. So, like,
okay.
Beijing is on the eastern coast,
You
right on the
sure.
water, and then Chengdu is like literally a 3 hour, 4 hour flight away from that to the west. So
Yeah.
it's almost right on the
China's
border
huge.
of Nepal and Tibet.
Oh, okay, okay.
And so it was just like an amazing experience. I was like, everyone needs to have this experience of going to a
Mm.
place where you are not the norm, where you don't know how things work, where you recognize how difficult it is for someone from another place who doesn't speak the language to come and try and interact with people. Just like going across the street from my hotel and like trying to get a coffee
Where
in
do
the
I get a
morning
where do I
was,
get deodorant?
yeah,
Where do I get a bar of soap?
right.
Like, where do
And the technology has gotten amazing. Like you can do a lot on your phone now. You can take
Yeah, yeah,
pictures
yeah,
and
yeah.
translate it. But even though there's like it's
I
very
feel like, good
exhausting.
for you because I feel like Mandarin or Chinese is, like, this hardest thing to learn.
I
English
did
is kind
not
of
learn
learned.
it. I was so bad. At the end of 2 weeks, I still wasn't saying thank you correctly. And like someone would say, no, it's like this. And I would say what I thought was exactly that same thing. They're like, no, you don't get it. No.
I love that. No, because whenever I visited a handful of countries, and I'm all on that Duolingo train where I try to at least learn some kind of basics or see what I can do. Because it's like I'm not fluent in Spanish because my mom, she was very Americanized. She didn't grow up, but I learned from the relatives and from working in restaurants and from school. But then when I went to Italy, it was easier to pick up
Yeah.
because I
A lot
already
of
knew a lot of
similarities. Yeah.
Spanish. And even when I went to Germany, a lot of it's very similar to English, or you can extrapolate. But even then, it's kind of like even when but it's different from when I read it and type it versus hearing the native. where like everywhere in Germany, they almost 90% of people spoke English.
Yeah.
So it was like,
And that's the thing. Everyone
how,
wants to speak
yeah,
English. Like I
yeah.
would try out phrases and be like, no, we want to talk English.
I remember just going to, like, nearby my hotel because my husband I tagged along with him on a work trip, and so I was just on my own in Germany, in Munich. I was like, "I'm gonna do one activity." I'm gonna do and once I learned, like, how to like, the transit system, I felt pretty comfortable
Hmm.
because it was pretty efficient, and I worked in Chicago, I'm here in Chicago, like, I'll take the train over driving if it makes sense. So I learned a lot of the transit and everything, not just the Metro, but the L and the Pace bus and all that. But, yeah, it was just like when I would go across the street, I'm like, "Could I just get, like, a croissant and some coffee?" And, like and then she said, like, "Oh, that's alles?" And I was like, "I know that word. I know that word." She's like, "You need English? Is that all?" That's basically what she said.
Yeah,
And I was like, "How do you
that's
say
alles.
it? How do" yeah,
Yeah.
that's alles. She's like, "How do you say it?" I was like I think that they did, like, appreciate even if I'm a dumb American, they appreciate where I'm like, "Oh, wait, how do you say it?" 'Cause I that's the least you could do. That's the least you could do, you know what I mean? And it was really funny when we were visiting when my husband was after work hours and we would go kinda, like, wander around, we'd go out to dinner or whatever. One of the waiters was like yeah, I was like, "Okay, English, you need English?" My husband goes, "Sí." And I'm like, "Serious?" It's yeah. And then we, like he comes back with the English menus and we're like I was like, "Oh, danke, thank you." And the waiter goes, "Prego," which is like, "You're welcome" in
Yeah, yeah,
Italian.
yeah.
So it's like
He knew it was that.
he's like, Mr.
It's just a
International."
little
So,
blend. It's
like
a blender of various
yeah, which I
languages.
think I'm like, "Oh god, how much are we missing out on by not being surrounded?" Because it's like the United States is huge, and I don't think a lot of people realize it. Like, you could go live wherever you want, whatever temperature you want, in whatever environment, weather you want. You could just basically go live there versus Europe where it's like, oh, like, the country's like a half an hour away,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
still like but because a country's half an hour away, you probably know at least 2 languages, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So,
LA is kind
I
of like that. Like that's the nice thing. I've been in LA for a long time, and it's very multicultural in Los Angeles. Like you'll go to lots of neighborhoods where, like Koreatown or Chinatown. A lot of things are in Spanish because a lot of people speak Spanish. So I feel
mm.
like that's a good environment for my kids to grow up in because it's very
Yeah.
like you see signage stuff. There's like multiple languages all around. Whereas I grew up in Ohio, and it was like English. And it's like even now I go back, it's like you go from neighborhood to neighborhood, the houses look the same. There's all the same five restaurants. Like there's an Applebee's, there's a Red Robin, there's a Walmart. Like it's all the same stuff everywhere.
Oh my
So
god, that is so funny. Okay, so we'll get back to your because 'cause I'm, like, looking at the time, I'm like, "We'll get back to your book.
yeah.
We'll get back to your book
We're
before
just
we wrap up."
conversing. It's all good.
I know, we just, like, went off, but we're here to talk about your book. No, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, "We might talk for 2 hours, who knows?" Okay, so let's see, I'm gonna throw this at you. What were the most challenging parts to write? What were the most enjoyable parts to write?
I think I love science fiction, but it took me a while. Like this is my sixth novel, and I think I was always more comfortable with like fantasy and things that were heightened because I
Mm.
think I was intimidated by the science. My whole life, anytime I love science, but every time I learn about a scientific concept, I'm like, "Oh, can you do this with it?" And they're like, "No, you can't do that." Like that's so that was hard. Was like the figuring out the science of it and how it would work and thinking through all the processes and feeling like I got it right, but still being able to have fun with it. And then, easiest wise, I think it was so fun to think of all the different set pieces. Like, I always do this thing when I have a new idea that I just like will open a Word document and I'll start jotting down a bunch of notes. And immediately with this one, I was like, oh, you could have this kind of an action scene and this kind of fight scene and this kind of thing. So, all the physical stuff came very easily, I think. It was just finding the scientific details to make sure it made sense.
That's so crazy. I think that's so funny because you were already, like, experienced as an editor from a physical acting or storytelling point of
Mm-hmm.
view, because I feel like I've heard a common sentiment among authors is where they wish they could just like writing action sequences. Oh, his hand went here and his head turned here. Like they wish they could just have a camera to pan
Yeah.
so that they could write it and then
Yes.
the pan and then write it. Like I think that's so funny. I feel like that's one of the skills that kind of give you a little edge, like a little
Being able
boost.
to see the shots. Yeah, there was that thing
Yeah.
going around for a while of like when you picture something in your head, can you see it? Like if you picture an apple, can you see an apple? And like going back to Andy Weir, he said recently, this is crazy to me, that he never pictured what Rocky looked like. when he was writing Project Hail Mary, because he doesn't
How
think
that
that
doesn't make
way.
any sense.
Yeah, he just doesn't think that. He's like, he knew what he had to look like from a scientific perspective, but he's like, the way Rocky looks on screen is canon because I never pictured it. So that what they came up with is how he looks.
That's I feel like how can you because he described him.
Yeah, but he's describing
And
him
he
from
just
like a, he would have to have this kind of hard covering. He'd have to have this kind of, this
and
consistency
just
of his
a,
skin.
a claw like
Yeah,
oh my god. That's hilarious. That's so funny. I'm like that's like just gives a whole new level of viewing it or reading it. And where he was just like, yeah, however your interpretation is cinematically, it's canon.
yeah,
That's amazing. Okay, so let's see here. This is a like a fun exercise.
sure.
You're the first guest that I'm gonna ask this to. Okay, so thinking about like all your characters, it could be the minimal character, it could be one of the stronger characters. I'm gonna go one by one. What character would you go to if you needed to plan a party?
Okay, that's interesting. I probably, unfortunately, there's a really gross character in this who I nicknamed the
I know what
Sultan.
you're talking about.
He's really disgusting, but he probably would plan a good party. Like he would have all the best food, all the good like wines and stuff like that, all the good drinks. He'd be like, he'd have the kind of party where there's like people dancing that look amazing, and you're like, who are those people? Why are they doing that? And then you find out who is hosting the party, and you'd be grossed out and want to leave. But yeah, he'd probably do
Yes,
a good job.
I know who
The
exactly you're talking about.
Sultan,
That's so
yeah.
funny. Yeah, yeah. Which character would you go to if you had to get ready for a first date?
Oh, nice. I would go to probably Claire, Kai's ex-wife, because I think she's very grounded and very smart and very common sense. Like she'll talk you up, she'll support you, but she's not gonna blow too much smoke, and she's gonna give you really good advice of like, here's how to have a good time. This is what people actually want to see.
I may agree. I didn't know how I felt about Claire, but we're seeing it through Kai's eyes.
It's
So we
true.
just
Kai is
yeah.
he is definitely a bad narrator, like because he's mad, and I think the reason he's mad at his ex-wife is because she's right about everything that he needs to change about himself. And when people do that to us, it's like we get defensive, and so I think he's super defensive because just talking to her reminds him of like his failings.
Yeah, and I didn't get the idea that she obviously it was not amicable, but it was cordial. Like
Yeah,
they were mature about it for the most part until she was like, "I'm having a man over."
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and then he went back to like, "Who? Wait, what's his name? Kevin?" Like
Kevin.
she.
I have a good friend named Kevin too, and I don't know if he's read that in the book yet. That I named her new boyfriend Kevin. He's like, Kevin, oh Kevin.
Yeah, I just like I felt for him because it was like I didn't want to assume anything from who she was, but she was like trying to and he was going for the worst of it, right? Like he was assuming the worst. He was hitting her like he was saying his nasty comments and
Yeah.
but it was just it's like I felt for him too. It was like I felt for both of them where it was just like if they were real people in my life, I'd be like, this is none of my business. I'm like, that's not
One of the reasons it was
or it's
fun.
like it's not my place, but I
Yeah,
want to hear the tea. I
yeah.
want to like, yeah,
One of the reasons it was fun to write Kai as a character is he says all the stuff I wish I could say. Like he has no filter, because he's basically like the world is so screwed up and everyone's acting like selfish jerks. So I'm just going to call people on their selfish jerkness. Now, is he always right? Definitely not. He should definitely shut up sometimes. But it was a fun character to write because it's like it's so liberating to go through life
yeah,
wishing you could just tell people how
yes.
you felt.
Oh, these social norms
Yeah,
and getting along with people,
yeah,
and especially someone who has control over your kids, like who you have to be a partnership and who has control over your relationship with your kids. It's like
yeah,
that's a whole thing that like I don't have experience with, but I know people
yeah.
who do, and I've seen ugly parts of it, and it is like,
Me too.
like, oh, last one. What character would you go to if you needed to hide a body?
Probably Tevin would be great at that. And that's what he does already. Tevin is like Kai's partner, who's what's called a scrapper. And scrappers are people who, even though it's incredibly dangerous to go outside, they make their own little hazmat suits and they go take care of stuff that everyone else is too cowardly, doesn't want to risk themselves to do it. And like you were talking earlier about like how there's kind of classes of society, I feel like the scrappers are that lower level of society where there's like all black market stuff. They can get stuff done. They're scavenging everything. And it was fun to think about who started that group, that which is a surprise I won't give away. Like it's not
Yeah.
what you would expect, the kind of person who would do it. But to me it's like, yeah, he's being from that group would be the best at. Unfortunately, he's the one who gets killed at the beginning. So Kai now has to do all
That's
this
like
stuff
who
himself.
propels. Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Okay, what do you hope readers get out of Ashland?
First of all, I always hope people are just entertained. Like it was great to me earlier when you said that,
Check.
like
I
you
was.
kept turning pages because
Yep.
that's what I want to do, and I feel like I respect writing and novels that are trying to like change the world, but I'm just trying to entertain people. The other thing deeper down is I hope that, like, I know it's close to the pandemic and it brings up all that stuff, but I hope that it reminds people of like what we were able to do and the fact that we did come out of it. That it was a crazy time we all lived through
Yeah.
collectively, and it's amazing that like our lives basically in a lot of ways are back to what they were. Sometimes I think maybe we should have kept some stuff that we changed.
Yeah. Yeah, I do appreciate hybrid or remote work.
Yeah,
That's become more of the norm and more what people, what they're looking for when they're job searching. I do appreciate that
yeah.
because I think it's super important with the work-life balance. And I agree. I agree. And that's
And
definitely
the thing
like
you
a
said
good,
about
yeah.
being aware of your neighbors, I think that's a thing I wish we could have kept more of. Like doing the Easter egg hunts and like putting the like we had a blackboard where we put a joke of the day. And I ran into somebody after the pandemic who said like, "Oh, I missed that you guys don't do those jokes anymore." And I was like, "It
Oh.
was hard coming up with 400 jokes."
I could not. It could never be me. I could never do that because I'm not. At the end of the day, I am an audience member.
Right.
I am not. I'm not necessarily a creator. That's why I do this, where I'm like helping you, I'm asking you questions, and having. I have bones to pick sometimes for making me feel things.
Yeah, yeah,
But at
yeah.
the end of the day, I could never do it. I could like I'm gonna help you get your word out and get the feelings out and get the insights. But no, I could never do that. I don't have a story or a line of thinking where I'm like, "Oh, no, I need to get this out on paper." No, I'm good. I'm like, I wanna discover everybody else's lines on paper.
That's cool.
So, Matt Harry, where can we find you online and on social media?
I am mostly on Instagram at Matt Harry MH with little underscores between the words. I also have a website, mattharrywriter.com. I'm also on Facebook, Matt Harry Writer as well. But yeah, mainly those three.
Perfect. Oh, are you working on you have any new projects, anything that you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah, I have a couple new novels I finished one that I'm querying around now a little bit that's a supernatural detective novel.
Eh.
So again, I'm kind of back in my safety zone of fantasy as opposed to science. And then I have another one that is more of like a sci-fi action thing that I just finished a first draft of. And hopefully I'll send to some beta readers and then start querying on that as well.
Nice, nice. Okay, and Matt Harry, Ashland, that book is likely again available now by the
Mm-hmm.
time of this interview release. Thank you so much for your time, for your patience, for going along with my chaos for the first 15 minutes that we were chatting.
No, thank you. I'm sorry about
And
all the different light. Like, let's see what's
no,
happening with
don't
like
apologize.
this is like crazy. This period of time.
It's okay. You gotta figure out what works. Like I got artificial light, and even then, because I wear glasses, like you could tell it's a ring light. So like, it's okay. I
It's like
get
that
it.
music video thing with the circles. Looks cool.
They're good. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Ashland, I this was a fantastic read. I would say 5 stars for sure. Like
Oh, thank
I
you.
finished it and I was just like I couldn't stop. Especially during like the last third of it, I was like I couldn't. I just needed to know. I needed to finish it. Good character development, good characters all around, suspense, sci-fi, realistic. It just I don't know how else to articulate it right now. If they're signing off, I just recommend it to people who like
Thank you.
sci-fi and who appreciate a good fast paced, or at least I will say very well paced, appropriately paced, where I just entertaining. I wanted to keep going.
That's
And
great.
yeah, thank you so much for your time. And if and when you're ready to whatever project you're working on, feel free to come back. I love to chat again.
That'd be great. This is great. Thank you so much.
And there you go. That was Matt Harry talking about his book, Ashland. That book is available now. Check out the show notes to see links where you can find Matt online and on social media and where to purchase the book. In the show notes, you'll also see where to find Cantina Book Club on your favorite social media book communities, such as Bookstagram, Book Talk, BookTube, Threads, Facebook, and more. And I would love and appreciate it if you could hit that follow or subscribe button so that you never miss out on book reviews and author interviews. And if you have any book loving friends who are looking to get more out of their reading lists, please share Cantina Book Club with them so that they can find upcoming releases and interviews with authors. Another way to help this podcast is to head over to your favorite podcast player and give Cantina Book Club a rating and review. It helps me reach more potential listeners and fellow book lovers like you. And that goes for any podcast that you listen to. It's one of the easiest ways to help. If you need book recommendations, you can reach out to me. I'm always excited to share my recent favorites or any other suggestions based on genre. Or you can head over to Cantina Book Club to read more in-depth book reviews of all types of genres. While you're at it, you can subscribe by entering your email on the website so that you could get new reviews and episode posts delivered directly to your inbox. If you want to support Cantina Book Club even more, you could donate by finding the form on cantinabookclub.com, whether it's a one-time donation or as little as $1 a month. I seriously appreciate the support and will share my appreciation by giving you a shout out on the show. And finally, one of the best ways to help authors promote their works is to head out over to Amazon, Goodreads, Substack, Storygraph, any kind of platform that you rate books and that you find books and find authors. Please do give them a rating and review. It's free. It helps out so much, just like pre-orders and, posting on social media, all that good stuff. Thanks so much for listening and see you next time. Cheers.